All right. Okay. It may or may not be recording. Okay. Let me share screen. Okay. So let me get the lights. There's a couple that's closer to the classroom if you want to come a little bit closer. But okay, so this is beginning drawing. And so we're here Monday, Wednesday, 7 to 9:45. We'll be finishing at 9:30 every day, so that way we can clean up and get out of here. And September 5th is the ad drop deadline. That means that if you drop before September 5th, there's no penalty. You don't have to pay for the course. And that's also something you could take advantage of to sort of shop courses. October 31st is the last day that you can withdraw from the course. And so this course is broken up into 3 units. So the first unit, I teach you guys about still life, which is drawing objects, but I also go over first the basics of using the materials and just fundamental aspects of drawing, such as light and dark. And then the second unit is environment. So I take you around to a couple places on campus, you draw in different locations. And the third unit is the figure. So we will have 3 nude model sessions. And so you should let me know if you're not comfortable with working with the nude model, and I can come up with an alternative for you. And so I'm perfectly happy to do that. But it's not sexy. It's a very clinical experience. And it's a tradition with Western art that's gone back through all time. So, but you're perfectly welcome to come have an alternative. And I basically spend the whole semester with you guys trying to work on how to blend the material. So how to smoothly fade the material from dark to light, say, how to make a nice clean hard edge, and also how to use extensively light and dark. It's something I'll be harping on for quite a bit. Hello, who are you? Who are you? No. Sierra, okay. Let me get you. Okay. All right. So I'm giving you guys a bit of a buffer period. So Wednesday, you won't need to have all your materials, but you will need to have all the materials by next Wednesday. So we have no class next Monday, but you should have all your materials next Wednesday. If they're still not here, I have extras that you guys can borrow, and so that's perfectly fine. And for your homework this week, you're welcome to use anything you have. So if you have pencils or pens around, that's fine. I have the paper for you guys to use. And so it's important that you bring all your materials. On the supply list, there was like a big portfolio bag, but you could probably just fold your drawing pads and then have just a little bag with all the supplies in it. And there's nowhere to store that stuff, so you just gotta bring it for each of the classes, just in case we're using that. You can take cardboard and build, like jury rig yourself a little portfolio to hold your pad. So you're welcome to take some of this cardboard to like make a little handle. And so that's what that's for. So you're welcome to, but if I were you guys, I would probably just hold the pads and just have a little bag of the supplies. Let me see. So you guys will have in class the exercises, and I try to make them as interesting as possible, but since you guys are going to be learning the fundamentals, they're a little dry. And so it'll be like drawing a sphere or like drawing fabric, and they get more fun as we move throughout the semester. And but where I think it's really exciting is the homework assignments. And so your homeworks, you'll have 2 weeks to do them in general. This first homework, the most beautiful thing is just benchmark. I just want to see where you're at with your drawing skills. So you have less than the 2 weeks. But after that, you'll have 2 weeks for each of the homework assignments. And that's where I'll be pushing you guys, not only with your technical abilities, but also the strength of the ideas themselves. And so it's important that you kind of challenge yourselves in terms of trying to be innovative with the ideas, trying to make as impactful work as you can. One of the biggest things that I think that I do with all of you guys in this course is I want to expand your definition of what can go in an artwork. And so that's part of what the presentation is today. But most people just think of art as still life, landscape, or figure. But we're at a time now in the trajectory of art history where there are no more rules. So, you could be painting memes. There are painters that paint pornographic stills. Like, you can be combining multiple different genres from art history. There's no more rules. And so there's no reason not to kind of take advantage of that, to just be making the work that's most interesting to you. And if you are just in love with the traditional still life, landscape, or figure, you're welcome to do that. But potentially a different drawing instructor might be a better option. But I won't force you to make porno paintings. So the what was I going to say about homework? Oh yeah, so it's really important to me that you're interested in the homework assignments. So if you're not interested in the assignment, I'm more than happy to talk to you and we can come up with alternatives until you are, because you honestly won't learn anything unless you're interested in what you're doing. And so that is important to me. My only rule for what you guys cannot draw in here is if it is illegal, you are not allowed to do it. So if you're selling crack, you're not allowed to make a drawing about how you sell crack, which a classmate of mine in undergrad, that was her whole thing. So that's a real thing. So just as long as it's not illegal, it's fine. Okay, so grading is mostly based on your effort. So if I see you putting in a lot of time, you're more than likely going to get an A or a B. And the only kind of hitch in that is if by the end of the semester you're still not able to successfully blend the material or make a hard edge, that makes it it makes it a little harder to give you an A. But effort's the most important thing. You guys are all coming in at completely different levels. And to that end, too, when you guys see the homework assignments go up, I'm not judging you all against each other. I'm just judging you on based on where you came in. And so please don't feel intimidated if there are people with a lot more experience. It's not, I'm not assessing you guys on a curve or anything. It's just based on your individual progress. So sometimes students get a little like intimidated if there's someone that's like a Michelangelo in here, which we get sometimes. So let's see. So if I have a little clause in the syllabus about disruptive behavior. Try to be kind to each other. The way that I teach, I ask that you guys are kind of sharing a lot of yourselves in these assignments. And so please be considerate to everybody else in the class. When you guys present your homeworks every 2 weeks, we do critiques. So you'll put the homeworks up on this board and then we'll all talk about the work. And you can say the same information to somebody in a kind way or a really cruel way. And so I encourage you guys to try to be kind with your comments to each other and respectful. Yeah, so that's an important thing in terms of disruptive. Not participating is disruptive, not showing up is disruptive. An excessive dependency on my input to succeed is disruptive too. So I try to show you guys all the basics and the fundamentals. And a lot of the learning happens when you are kind of working on your homework drawings. And so there's a certain amount of independence that I ask of you guys. Okay, so that is that. So I'm going over it again just because we had one latecomer, but you're allowed 3 absences for the semester. These absences are illness, religious holidays. I won't dock you if you can bring me a doctor's note or something like that. And so if you miss more than 3 classes,
At your 4th absence, you lose a whole letter grade off your final grade. 5 absences, you're losing 2 letter grades. 6 absences, 3 letter grades. 7 absences is a course failure. And so if you miss more than 7 classes, you are to withdraw yourself from the class. So that the syllabus is a contract between us. And I only stress this because it's fairly common for me to end up with students that miss something like 12 classes, and then they argue with me and beg me for makeup assignments, and I give them to them, and then they don't do them, and I'm just sick of it. So that's the only reason why I'm harping on this. But I honestly think it's fairly easy to succeed in this class in terms of just showing up and doing the work. So I sent you guys in the email an Amazon wish list with all the supplies. That's the easiest and probably cheapest way to get everything. Blaine should have pretty much everything you want, but you're going to be paying a little bit more. It's great to support local businesses, but if money is an issue, it's going to be cheaper on Amazon. Michael's might have everything you need, but there might be some things missing. So my recommendation is just to order everything off the wish list. If you do have gaps, I always have spare supplies so I can loan them out. And even for homework this week, if you wanted to borrow something like charcoal, you can, but any material is fine. So next Wednesday, I'll go over what these materials do that I had you order. If there's, hopefully there's time. Sometimes critique takes up the entire class period. And so hopefully there'll be time, but we'll be doing that soon. Maybe we'll do crit a little quicker so I can go over the materials for you guys. And so there's 2 kinds of charcoal that I have you guys get. And I'll go over the difference between that. You'll also be doing some drawings in graphite pencil. You can decide if you prefer working with graphite pencil or charcoal. So for the homework assignments, you can usually choose either. So once you get a feel of the different materials, you could decide what you prefer. And then there's some other things. There's 2 drawing pads. The newsprint is for quick exercises. So when we have the model come in, she'll pose for like 30 seconds and then that'll be that page. And so you would not want to waste the precious fancy homework paper on something like that. So we have the newsprint pad for quicker exercises, and that's very thin paper that's kind of brown. The white paper is what you'll be doing your homework on and some of the in-class exercises. The white paper can take more of a beating. The newsprint, if you press too hard on it, it will just tear and fall apart. And so it's more for the quicker exercises. And all the drawings are on the 18 by 24 size. So that's important. The expensive stuff on the list are the drawing board, and the backs of the drawing pads are stiff. So like when I'm drawing in my studio, I just use that backing as the board, but you're welcome to purchase a drawing board. When you're in here, you're welcome to borrow the drawing boards. Have over here. They look like this. And, but like I said, there is sort of stiff cardboard at the back. That's usually fine. A good material to get is a can of spray fixative. So I bought from Michael's a couple of those. And what that does is drawing is very messy. And so you can spray, and you have to spray outside because it's like an aerosol, like hairspray. If you spray your drawing, it'll keep the material from falling off. And so after critique, you're more than welcome to borrow my spray fixative if you want to spray your drawings before they go up on the display wall or before you take them home. And so I'd recommend that you get that unless you don't really care. Another note on drawings being messy, it's a good idea to find a place at home that you can draw. And what I did when I was an undergrad is I ripped open a garbage bag and pinned it on the wall and then placed one on the floor because the charcoal and the graphite is going to fall down. And then if you pin your drawing up on any flat wall, you should be able to draw. Any table is like fine if you have a big enough table, but if you don't, the smooth wall is fine. You guys do have access to this studio when there's not another class in session, so you're welcome to come in here to draw. And on that note, I have to give you guys the door code. So you should all write this down somewhere. Okay. So, it's 1452, and I'm just gonna test it just to make sure that it works. Okay, it worked. Okay, so 1452 is the door code. You're welcome to open up the door if you get here before me. We also have late night access, so you guys are welcome to work in here, I think, until 10 p.m. But you can be in here as late as 2 under certain conditions. Do you think any of you guys are interested in late night access? Okay, so I'll try to get those forms. There's a new system in place to grant that, so I will look into that. And the building hours are on the syllabus. So you guys, and there's should be the class schedule next to the door. So there's not, there's a class schedule on the door to let you know if there's a class in here or not. So hopefully those will go up soon. But all of the supplies will cost you sort of a little bit more than $100. I think if you skip the bag and the boards, it's less than that. But like I said, I do have spares, so if money is an issue, I can help out with some of those supplies. All right, so I think um, these are just the mandatory statements. Oh, we have a show that opened today in the Kimura Gallery, so I'll take you guys over to it if it's open during this time. Coming up, we'll go in a couple weeks, but on the mezzanine, the second floor of this building, we have a gallery, and so there's a show right now that's the Salmon Culture Show. It was a show at the Anchorage Museum. A smaller version of that is being brought here to campus. Okay. So the building is open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday, I believe. And so with your Wolf card, you should be able to get in within those times. And like I said, you're welcome to work in here. And so that is that. Ignore the bibliography. We're forced to put them on the syllabus, but you are not to buy or read these books. You can if you want to, but I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. Okay. Yep. So do you guys have any questions about the syllabus? Yeah. I just sent it today, though. Like today? Yeah. But I just need oh, the new email. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is there anybody else that didn't get my email? Okay, so I can send that. It should be here attached to this. Let me see. Okay. Let me just what is the first few letters of your new email? Snow. 9? It's not showing up. Okay. Oops. I see. Okay. Oh. Okay. There we go. Stupid Zoom. All right. So if there are no questions about that, let's move to the slideshow. And then let me just get this. Okay. Mm. Where is it? Oh. Slideshow. Yeah. Okay. So the slides I have for you guys today are examples of drawing throughout sort of Western history. And I have contemporary art examples of some of my favorite drawers and painters. And the main point of this is just to expose you to the diversity of ways that people have used drawings, just to kind of open your eyes as to what the possibilities are. This is a sketch by Da Vinci, and Da Vinci was an interesting artist. He was live during the Italian Renaissance, and he was not only an artist, but he's also an inventor and a scientist. So a lot of his drawings were actually alongside his scientific studies and his dissection of cadavers and his inventions of wacky flying machines and things like that. One thing to take note of with this is you can see the lines. There is sort of a style. I will be teaching you guys mainly how to achieve sort of realism, to make something look like the thing. But I'll also be talking to you guys and letting you explore stylization, which means kind of choosing a style that deviates from real life. We'll also be doing some abstract drawing. But that's an example of mark making where you have those lines running through. And something to start paying attention to as well is the use of light and dark. So one of the biggest issues that students in this class have is they don't go dark enough. And my favorite lecture is on that. But it's something to be looking out for now, that we achieve depth in an artwork through sort of using a good range of light and dark. So just keep that in mind. This is a painting by Ong. Hopefully these are okay. So they're all out of order. One second. They're still out of order. You might have to look at it on the drive. Ugh. And if you guys want access to this slideshow, I do have it in Google Drive, so I can share the folder with you. Okay, so for whatever reason, this technology does that, we'll be looking at them through the Google Drive folder. Unfortunately, they're a little smaller. This is another Da Vinci drawing. It's a drawing of hands. This is one of his inventions. It looks like a spring-loaded coffin for some reason. But yeah, he has all sorts of like zany inventions. These are more of his kind of anatomical studies. It's another drawing. You can see those lines, the styles. Is anybody good with computers? Does anyone know why my slideshow's out of order? Because I want you guys to be able to see the full images, but they're just jumping around. Ugh. Okay. Sorry, it's never happened to me before. If you're too far away now that the images are a little smaller, you're welcome to pull a stool up. Just make sure you bring it back to where you were. So now I've got some drawings by Durr, and these are actually prints. So they are drawings that are done etched into a stone, probably, and then ink will go into those cracks, and then he pressed the paper against it. This is an Adam and Eve. Durr was a German artist. And with printmaking, you're forced to use things like line and marks because you can't do any smooth sort of blending because of the limitations of the medium. More Durrs. Something I'll have you guys try this semester is working on toned paper. So you're probably just used to drawing on white paper, but if you draw on gray paper or brown paper, that can help you save a lot of time because that means you can go lighter than that tone and darker right from the beginning, and it can yield a really beautiful drawing. So the white pastel is a really important material. So this is a grisaille. This is a black and white painting by the painter Ong. And oftentimes grisailles were made as drawing studies for a painting. So this was the finished painting that the grisaille was preparation for. This is one of my favorite paintings, and it's an interesting one because she has extra vertebrae in her back. So she's anatomically incorrect, but it was to make her look extra elegant. This is a Francis Bacon. He's a good example of an artist where it's not about the realism that makes it powerful. Francis Bacon grew up with in an active war zone around his house. There was like dead bodies caught in barbed wire, and you see a lot of that kind of trauma and kind of violence within the paintings and the drawings that he makes. So there's like a real rough texture. He ended up marrying or dating the burglar, the guy that burglared his house. There's a movie about it where Daniel Craig plays the burglar. This is Chuck Close. Chuck Close, you can't tell these things are not photographs, even when you're like 2 inches from them. And it's now the photo is so ubiquitous, but when the photograph was first accessible to most people, the artists that were working from photos, it was sort of about the photo. And there are certain advantages and disadvantages to using photos. For your guys' homeworks, primarily you'll be working from photo reference. I'm not one of those teachers that everything needs to be from life. If you prefer to work mainly from life, you can. The stuff I set up in class, you get to work from life. But when you're working from photos, it just opens up what you can do. If you want to do a drawing of you skydiving from your umbilical cord, it's a lot easier to do that from a photograph rather than force your roommate to like balance on a sofa or something. It's possible. But it just opens up what you can draw. But just know that when you're working from a photograph, it tends to flatten your subject. You tend to lose information in the brightest lights and the darkest darks. So those are the disadvantages. But if you're aware of those things, you can kind of work around them sometimes. Like I mainly work from photographs in my own studio. The thing too with working from a photograph is the camera is making a lot of decisions when you take that photo that you would have to if you were looking at something from life. So just keep that in mind. This is George O'Keeffe. She's a good example of an artist that, it's not about realism necessarily, it's about the style, and it's the beauty is there in the kind of the style. She was known to take the sand and the dirt from the desert and actually put it into her paints. This is Ashley Bickerton. He's my favorite artist. They are very wacky. He grew up surfing. I saw this painting when I was 17. My high school art teacher brought me to an art dealer's house. So I've lived in Alaska for over 12 years, but I grew up in New York City. And so he brought me to a collector's house. And this guy had like Picassos in his kitchen that the dogs were like scratching up against, and just like amazing art. And this was in the stairwell, and I had never seen anything so like disgusting, but sort of sacred feeling. And it's the artist's ex-wife and their kid, and there's like all these candy bar wrappers, and his ex-wife is breastfeeding a pig because Ashley Bickerton grew up in the Pacific Islands where the women of the village would actually breastfeed piglets that were the runts, or else they would die. And so it's a motif that he put in. But yeah, art at the end of the day is communication, and I think it's communication capable of transcending what you could communicate to somebody through the written word. I was just talking to an artist friend of mine, and she was saying that she thinks art is important because it holds a historical record for what it was like for people living at different times. You get to see what they thought was beautiful. You get to see what they thought about and what concerned them in the world. This is an Alexander Ross. He's most well known for working from little clay models, and that's something you guys are going to get to do in this class. And so these are some of his drawings. It's sort of partly from imagination and kind of geometric. They sort of look like single-celled organisms. And this is Walton Ford. He was one of my teachers. Walton Ford is interested in the visual language of like the Audubon Society, like naturalist illustrations, but all of his work is metaphor. And so this, for example, is about how India was conquered by the British. And so the British are represented by all these wasps because the British Navy with a fleet of small ships was able to conquer India, and India is the tiger. So metaphor is quite common within art. This is about a conference of French like diplomats. So this whole series was historical events through animal metaphor. This is a Mark Tansey. He's most well known for monochromatic images, so it's sort of like one color and value. And there's something kind of poetic about the images that he chooses. One thing that I encourage you guys to think about is that I believe the strongest artworks are open-ended, which means that there's not one way to read an image. I'm working on a mural over at the library right now, and someone came up to me and goes, "What does it mean?" It's like it means whatever you want it to mean. I think of contemporary art as the difference between poetry and prose. So with poetry, it's your interpretation as the reader that kind of finishes what that poem means. It should reflect your own life back at you. And with a lot of contemporary art, it's the same. Whereas prose, everything's sort of spelled out exactly for you. And so that's something to consider with your work and if you want to fix meaning, you can. But I do believe that an artwork could mean something very specific to you, but not be so focused that that's the only way anybody could read it. So an example of an artwork that's not open-ended is if you were to draw an anorexic girl holding her body looking sad in the mirror, there's only one way to read that image. And there's ways to craft a narrative that aren't so sort of one-dimensional. And I'd encourage you guys to think about that. Humor is something that you guys can be thinking about for your own work. I think the strongest artworks are artworks where the artist has put as much of themselves into the work as possible. So you get their sense of humor, you get what they think is beautiful, you get some of their spirituality, you get all these things sort of woven together. And that's what I encourage you guys to do when you have these open-ended prompts, is to kind of share about yourself. Okay, more Mark Tanzis. This is a Lee Bonteque drawing. This one she did with car exhaust, and she's working in the 70s. So she held a piece of paper up against her car exhaust and then was able to erase that soot. And her work looks very sort of sci-fi-esque. She's most well known for these three-dimensional sculptural canvases that look like a sci-fi explosion. They're like welded frames with canvas. This is H.R. Geiger. So he's an illustrator. He's the guy that designed the aliens for the movie franchise Aliens. Those were all his ideas. And he has like this otherworldly complexity to his work. And he achieves this, he's dead now probably, but with stencils. And so it's a buildup of stencils and airbrush that he's able to make this complexity. So there's a lot of innovative ways to make an image. This is Langdon Graves. There's what we call negative space is the white of the page, and Langdon Graves does a good job of balancing and incorporating that negative space alongside the imagery. And these are graphite drawings. So there's sort of an absence that is created through that negative space. This is Alex Ziv. So sort of inspired by cartoons, inspired by the French pointillist too. So a lot of his drawings, they're made up of little dots. Why, slideshow? Why? So you can see that the shading is achieved through tiny, tiny dots. And there's something devotional about art making that I think, when somebody, especially with realism, the question often gets asked, like, why would you paint something if you could just present a photograph? And for me, the answer is that like the hundreds of thousands of hours that it takes to devote yourself to an image matters with how you interpret that piece and what it means to somebody. And so that's, pointillism, little dots. Oh, good, it's still working. So you can see more of those pointless dots. And we'll do a mark making day. But he's definitely got some graphic cartoon elements. It's kind of exciting to see, just with no more rules with art making, that just the doors are open to be borrowing from graphic design, to be borrowing from pulling from all these different places, cartoon. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Sometimes contemporary art, though, enrages my students. And so if you're angry at something like, a banana duct taped to a wall being sold for $1 million, what I like to say to those students is that anything can be art now, which I think is a really good thing. It doesn't mean it's good art. And so you can take some solace in that. But I enjoy the freedom now, because if we were doing this class during the Renaissance, you would only be able to paint like historical or like religious scenes. There would be restrictions on who could even pose for that art. There'd be restrictions on who you were to even be an artist. And so all of art history has been dismantling those rules just one by one until now it can be, a banana, whatever. But it's probably better than the alternative. So these are graphite drawings by a friend of mine from school, Tom Bethauser, and he's inspired by the imagery of video games. And so most of his work is at this 3/4 view that you usually only get when you're looking at a video game. And they're these really meticulous drawings. He used to drive around when we were in school, and he would sketch what he thought buildings and objects would look like from that view. And so that's what his drawings are. And these are just tiny details from that really big piece. So he's done some more recently that kind of use that negative space, the way of the page a little bit more intentionally. These are drawings in blood by Vincent Castiglia. So he uses his own blood to make these drawings. Every spring I do experimental drawing. I don't think I've had a blood drawing yet. I did have like a mustard and a ketchup drawing. We do wacky things like I got them all gunpowder, and they arranged the gunpowder on wood boards, and then I lit them on fire so they were able to burn their images into the boards. Yeah, we do some wacky things in that class. This is a new one just to show you guys a more contemporary artist and kind of, open the doors on what you could be bringing into your work. This is the work of Christine Tian Wang. And so she makes these meme paintings. And some of them no, they're not all meme paintings that she does. This is some of her work too. But some of them she makes herself. Like she had I think it was a whole exhibition where I think it was called White People. So this one says, I just want to be a white girl. This one says, I wish I had a white boyfriend. And so unless these are real memes, have you seen these? I think that these were her own meme images. But there's sort of a social dimension to the work, and but she's pulling from meme culture. She has a whole series on Bitcoin, and I'm not really sure why. I guess it's relevant, but this is one of her Bitcoin meme paintings. This is another one for the White People show. And then this is Anna Park. So these are examples of drawings where she's using the materials themselves, what they can do to kind of strengthen the image. So there's a looseness that creates a sort of sense of violence with these drawings. You can see some areas are a little more refined, some areas are looser. All right, so that was just a mix of, I think, some of my favorite artists, some historical work. I'm gonna show you guys a few of my pieces just to lead into the homework assignment. So this is my mural over at the library that's done. I just started kind of, I guess it's 5 new walls that I'm working on right now over there. I'll take you guys over. One of my favorite classes is I take you guys to the library and we basically play hide and seek. You find a spot to draw and I may or may not find you. And so I'll bring you over to show you. But why I'm showing you guys this is it's basically a curation of around 50 objects that I either find the most interesting or the most beautiful things in the world. And so I just want to show you an example because your first homework is to think of the most beautiful thing you've ever seen or experienced and try to translate that into a drawing. And with my art practice, that's almost always what I'm trying to do. And so that was definitely the case for this. And so they all have sort of a cast shadow to kind of help with the three-dimensionality of them. This is the one that I just started a month ago. It's 7 portraits of UAA students of mine and alumni. And there's imagery that represents their passions. And so that is what I've been busy with. My regular practice when I'm not doing murals is it's a lot of self-portraiture. I grew up in an all-white town, and so I do a lot of self-portraits just because I've always had a sort of strange relationship with my own face because of that. And the most recent paintings that I've done, I've been studying Buddhism with my mom for the last 7 years, and all of my recent artwork has accompanied my Buddhist studies to try to help wrap my head around some of the more complex concepts. So I have a show downtown right now with all of those paintings in it. This is another one. But yeah, so your homework that's due next Wednesday is to think of the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen or experienced. Try to translate that into a drawing. Any material is fine. You can use crayons, you can use markers. If you want to borrow some charcoal or something from me, you can do that. Just catch me before I run out of here today. And if you are having a hard time narrowing it down, make a little list and you can pick one of the most beautiful things. That is fine. You could even combine a couple things if you want. You don't have to go too crazy with it. Like I said, I want to see sort of where you're at with your skills with this. And so anything goes, anything is fine. But always try to do the homework on the full 18 by 24. So if you need a sheet of that, I can give that to you. Are there any questions about the first homework? Okay. So lastly, I have for you guys examples of past student work from this class. And let me see. I have to pull up one moment. Wait. Drawing. I have too many folders. Okay. So yes. It's not downloading. All right. Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry for the technical issues. Let me drop. Where is it keep going? Oh, okay. So the other thing too with the homeworks is I give you guys so much freedom that if you're not interested, it's on you to really try to kind of come up with something that's going to engage you, or talk to me about alternatives. But and these might flip around because of course I'm experiencing technical difficulties, but I guess it's fine. My favorite thing to show you guys is these. So these are the most beautiful things in the first day class, and then that's the final drawing of this particular student. And so he chose to draw a 90s supermodel Claudia Schiffer for his most beautiful thing. And then his final drawing was kind of a return to that first drawing instead of the joke with that. But if you guys put the effort in, there's I've seen like miraculous transformations just within the course of the semester. I have more of these, but my slides are jumping around because of course they are. So these are examples from the classwork and homework. This is an assignment that I sometimes give, which is 5 stages of a dissection. And so the student chose to dissect moments in time of the life cycle of a dandelion. This is from an imaginary space assignment that you guys will have. So you have to, you'll have to make a space. You start with your imagination, but you'll have to make something that's closer to the viewer, some things at mid-ground and some things at the background. Used to be the deepest possible space. That's why we were getting these wacky drawings, but I've changed it a little bit since then. And it's not sliding anymore. All right. I guess I'm opening them individually. Okay, so this is another most beautiful thing, and then the final drawing. So this student, it's quite common for my students to take the final drawing and kind of reflect back on that first drawing. So this student's most beautiful moment was catching a Mewtwo in Pokemon, and then he chose to revisit that for the final drawing. And I've got one. So some students come in with more experience than others. You can see with this student that his most beautiful thing was already pretty developed. But that was his final. And so wherever you come in, I think that you can really push your skills and you know, if you put in the effort, I think you will yield very, very good results. And if you're interested in other forms of art making, most artists draw, and all the skills that you cultivate in drawing will translate to other mediums. So I work in everything. And so even the practice I get in drawing helps me to think about when I'm making sculptures. It definitely helps when I'm painting, but no matter what you're interested in, it's a really useful skill to have. So this is an example of, you know, the classwork. So a bunch of garbage for you guys to draw from life, but they can still make, you know, there's some really beautiful garbage drawings. I think this was deepest memory. We're not doing that anymore. You guys will have an assignment that's to pick around 3 objects to draw that tells the viewer about yourself. So it's the self-portrait through objects. So this was an accounting student. So she was wanting to talk about what it's like being a female in the sort of male industry of finance. And so she has this dollar bill shoved in the crotch of this vintage Barbie doll. It's her gun, her spur. And so that's an example of that. This, I don't remember what this was. Let's see. But yeah, this was the student's final drawing. With the final drawing, you guys have to draw an object, a environment, and a figure under the general theme of transformation. So it's very open-ended. Most kind of return back to the most beautiful thing. This is from one of my favorite weeks. So you guys will pull an adjective and a noun out of the hat, and you'll have to try to translate that into drawings. So this student picked liquid and metal. I don't think I have it, but one of my favorites was one student pulled offensive hole, and she chose to draw curse words floating around in a toilet. It was like pretty brilliant. So you guys already saw those. We'll do scratch board one day. So it's an ink sheet and then you guys scratch to remove the black and reveal the white. There's an assignment that used to be the identity politics assignment, but is now, you guys will pick an article of your choice from JSTOR, which is like the academic journal archives, and then you'll make a drawing that responds to that. It used to be pick a social or cultural cause that you feel very strongly about, but the world is a very different place now. So now you guys go to JSTOR, but you can still pick, any sort of anything you're passionate about. There are articles on JSTOR about it. So this was her Venus with a penis. I don't remember what this one was, but it's of two furries smoking a cigarette in a hotel lobby. So we might do black and white painting if there's time. So we'll do a little master copy of a classical work. This was an assignment that happens that I give every now and then. It's a self-portrait, how the world sees you and how you see yourself. This is more of the black and white painting. And then I have some more recent examples. All right, so this was from fall. So this was the student's final drawing. This was the adjective noun. So you don't always have to do representation. It's just the style should make sense for what you're drawing though. So those of you that only draw anime, it might be relevant if that's part of the points. But if your assignment is to draw an apple, there's no point to it being an anime apple. And so just when it's relevant, I'll let you guys do that. But if it's not relevant, I'll probably say something. This was one of the JSTOR articles. A student read something about muscle anatomy. And I'm happy for you guys to experiment with mixed media. My students that semester started a trend of kind of doing mixed media with painting and drawing. There's very few sort of rules that I'll impose on you guys as long as, you're still learning what you need to learn. This was a JSTOR article about the sexual nature of vampirism and cannibalism. This is imaginary perspective. This was a JSTOR article about AI. The student actually translated this poem into binary for the other side. I don't remember what this was. This was adjective noun. It was floating flame was what the student picked. This was imaginary space. This is a final drawing. Final drawing. So at Critique, I photograph all of your guys' work so that for grading purposes. And so I have a record of all of that. This is a student's final drawing. This is the self-portrait through objects. Imaginary space. Okay. Are there any questions? So that's all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to give you some food for thought for your first assignment and also just how to be thinking about what possibilities are for the future homeworks. And I really do hope that you can have fun, especially with the homework assignments. With the in-class assignments, when it's drawing garbage and stuff, when I was an undergrad, I would get bored and I would sneak curse words into like all the garbage. You can kind of entertain yourself to a certain point. So let me know if something's a little too dry and we'll try to liven it up as much as possible. But unfortunately, at the very beginning, it's just pretty dry having to cover the fundamentals. But I promise you things get wackier and more elaborate as we go on. But that's pretty much it. So unless you want to borrow supplies, you guys can get out. But yeah, you have a question?
Two questions. Tonight's homework was due on the 3rd.
Yes, next Wednesday. No class Monday, you guys, don't come.
What would you like us to call you?
You can call me Tom, you can call me Professor Chung, you can call me Mr. Chung. It's up to you. It should be the white drawing paper. So if you guys don't have that yet, get a piece from me so you can, don't have to wait for your supplies to come. And then is there anybody that wants some charcoal or something to do the drawing that doesn't have it? Okay. That's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. If you can, bring a ruler to Wednesday's class. So I'm teaching you linear perspective, which is a way to draw architecture and geometric space, shapes in space. It's our little buffer while your materials are coming, but if you can bring a ruler, that would be great. If you don't bring a ruler, you'll have to use one of my yardsticks, or one of my random, like, just thing with a hard edge. So if you have a ruler, it's preferable. But I should have something to use instead. But that's pretty much it. So unless you guys have other questions, or if you need to talk to me, you're welcome to head out early today.